everybody. Schuyler Callihan here with Mountaineers Now and SI Fan Nation channel. You're watching Between the Ears, and today we're going to talk a little bit about Jimmy Bell Jr. What is the best for him moving forward? What does it look like in football for him if he chooses to stay with the football team? And what it looks like if he goes back to basketball, or maybe he continues to do both. Who knows what Jimmy's going to do, but let's go ahead and dive right into this thing. We're going to go football, basketball, and then the grand big picture, which is if he decides to do both, what that would look like. So, first off, what does it look like for football? So, obviously, West Virginia has a pretty good mixture up front with their offensive line. It's a very seasoned group, and there's not really a true need or a true desperation of need where they're like, man, we really need a right tackle, or we really need a right guard. And they really don't even have that problem in the two deep. Neil Brown feels very confident about that group. Matt Moore has spoken at lengths about that group. Now they will probably look to add another offensive lineman through the transfer portal. That's just the nature of the portal, and they want to be able to have that depth as far as they can go in the trenches, both ways, offense and defense. So don't be surprised if they do go out and get another offensive lineman, preferably one that's played college football. So I don't think this is a situation where Jimmy Bell would come in and be much of a factor. And obviously, he's not going to start. We all know that. But could he eventually crack the two deep? I think that's the big question. If he were to play this season, this upcoming fall, I think this would pretty much be used as like a development year and a kind of refreshing year for him. And I don't think that we would really see him maybe but a few games. Now, there is going to be some opportunities where the score's probably going to be a little out of hand, and they're going to have some opportunities to get some guys some playing time, like the Duquesne game, for example. If that one gets ugly, as it should, then you could probably mark that down as a game where, okay, this is probably where we could see Jimmy Bell. And that's going to be his opportunity to show the coaching staff, like, hey, I've got something to work with here. If you just give me more opportunities, you can see what happens. So I don't think he'll crack the two deep, but I do think that he will play in some games. Again, just the ones that are out of hand, or if there's like only 2 or 3 minutes left in the game and it's clearly decided, it's a 3 or 4 score game, then those are the opportunities we'll probably see Jimmy Bell get. Because, I mean, let's face it, he can use those 4 games and still redshirt. At least as far as my knowledge, it's all kind of a little bit muddy in terms of his whole eligibility thing. He will have 2 years of eligibility in football. He has 1 left in basketball. So what does this look like for him in basketball? Why does him working out with the football team help him in basketball? Well, for one, it's gonna get him stronger, right? It's gonna get him more physical. It's gonna get him used to all that, the physicality of the game, I guess, which was a little bit of a problem last season with Jimmy in basketball. And it's not that he doesn't handle contact well or handle physicality well. He's a big dude. I mean, he's hard to move. Bob Huggins has talked about it a number of times. It's not so much that part of it. I think it's just more of the mental side of it, like that he can actually take this on and get double teamed all the time and understand how to handle it. Defensively, I think is kind of what this is more for than offensively. Jimmy just doesn't have the offensive touch that recent WVU bigs have had. And plus, when you look at what they're trying to do with their bigs, it looks like they're trying to get a four-man kind of rotation there with Bell, Jesse Edwards, Syracuse transfer, James Okonkwo, and Muhammad McGee. They're all going to be asked to do different things. They're not going to come in and when they rotate into the game, they're not going to be asked to do the same exact thing as the guy that just left the floor. That's kind of what we've seen in years past. this year, this upcoming season, if Bell returns, you got four different guys at that position that can do various different things, and they're completely different players. So I think Jimmy's going to be that guy that's going to come in, try to muddy the game up a little bit, try to make things tough, clog the paint. And you could probably see some situations where Jimmy and one of those other bigs are on the floor. I don't know how often we'll see that. That's going to be something we probably won't know until we speak with Bob Huggins, in October. But I think for him, it's going to make him stronger. It's going to make him absorb contact better. It's going to allow him to understand how to take that contact on and finish through offensively. Even though I think this is again more defensively, this is more for his defensive end of the game. And what does it look like for him in terms of playing time? So I think Jesse Edwards is probably going to be your starter. I don't even think that's really a question mark. You don't bring in a guy who's averaged over 14 points and over 10 rebounds and nearly 3 blocks a game and sit him on the bench. So Jesse Edwards is going to be your starter. Who that second man is, or that first guy off the bench, if you will, I think that's TBD. Like I think they could go a number of ways. I think that could be Jimmy, because he has that starting experience. Could it be James Okonkwo? Can he make that big leap and be that guy? Because I mean, let's face it, there's some flashes that we saw from James this past year. We're like, okay, like this guy's got something here. He can work. He can work on that defensive end. He's got instincts as a shot blocker. He can rebound the ball. He can score it a little bit, but there's still so much for him to learn that maybe, just maybe this is a year where he kind of sits back and learns a little bit, and then he kind of takes a bigger role the year after Jesse Edwards graduates. And then the biggest question, the biggest wild card in this whole thing is, what about Mo McGee? That's a very big topic that seemingly no one is talking about. And I don't know if it's just because it's not that big of a deal and everything's okay. But Mo McGee injured his foot or his ankle or something like that. I can't remember which it was top of my head, but got injured at the end of the season. Bob Huggins said he was going to be out probably a little while, and we never saw him. So is that a long-term thing? Is that a short-term thing? Is this something that could affect him going into next season? That's a big question mark, and maybe that's a big reason as to why they went out and got Jesse Edwards. So who knows? But I think that's the biggest wild card in this whole thing is, what about Mo McGee? Where is he at with his rehab, and how much of a factor will that play next season? It may not be anything. And if that's the case, that's the best case scenario for West Virginia in that front court rotation. But I would expect Jimmy Bell to probably be that first guy off the bench behind Jesse Edwards. Again, has the experience, muddy the game up. He can be aggressive on the defensive end. He doesn't have to worry about foul trouble as much because there's so much depth at that spot. And Jesse Edwards is very good at blocking shots. He did a very good job this past season of staying out of foul trouble, which was something that he had trouble with earlier in his career. So maybe that can be something that Jesse can kind of teach Jimmy a little bit. So there's a lot of good things for the basketball side of it. Probably obviously more than the football, but what does it look like if he does both? And I think that is the one question, or maybe it should be, what does it look like, because we kind of went through that, but should Jimmy Bell do both? Should be the question. I say, why not? Why the hell not? I think football wise, again, he's not going to crack the 2 deep, but when an NFL scout, this is from an interview that he did with a local news reporter, I can't remember who it was, but he had been told that by an NFL scout through Huggins, I believe, that he had really good footwork and that, hey, you cut an offensive tackle playing on your basketball team. If an NFL scout sees that and points that out to you, I mean, it's kind of hard to not want to go test those waters, right? And when you look at Jimmy Bell's future or his ceiling as a basketball player, it's probably overseas somewhere, right? I mean, it's not like he's a guy, and I think he's a intelligent kid, and he understands like, hey, my ceiling is probably not going to be the NBA. A lot of things would have to change between now and the time that the season ends next year for me to become an NBA player or be on the NBA radar. So I think he understands that and realizes, hey, if I have an opportunity to play in the NFL, it's a heck of a lot better than going across the pond and playing in some league that he probably doesn't want to play in, making money that it's not even worth going over there for when he could potentially play here in the States, in the NFL, and probably make the same amount of money that he would make over there, but be doing it here in the U.S. Maybe even more, depending on the whole situation where he lands. But getting from college to the NFL for Jimmy Bell, it's not impossible. Again, and I understand I said he wasn't going to crack the two deep, but he has that second year. So if he takes this year to refresh, develop, and kind of get a hang of everything again, next year he could take that next step, maybe crack the two deep. Who knows? I highly doubt he'll be a starter. But again, when you're talking about the NFL, we're not talking about he's got to be a draft pick. We're talking unsigned or undrafted free agent. He can sign somewhere. Mark Vidal did it. Marcus Santos Silva did it. And those guys didn't even play college football. So I think Jimmy Bell certainly can. He can land on a practice squad somewhere. It's not to say he's going to be on an active NFL roster, but there is a chance. There is a legitimate chance for Jimmy Bell to do so. And I think he should go for it. I really do. I think it's going to be demanding. It 100% will be demanding for him. It's going to be a challenge to kind of balance basketball, football, school. But I think if we've seen anybody that can do it, it's probably going to be Jimmy Bell, because you've seen the commitment that he has. Heck, this last month he spent time not only working out with football, but he also continued to work out with basketball. I think that just shows right there, hey, he can do it. Now it's obviously going to intensify when the season comes around, but I think that plus when you go back to where he showed up at on the scales when he first got to Morgantown versus where he is at now, and just that commitment level to shed the 50 plus pounds of weight, I think it was maybe even 70 pounds of weight that he lost. It shows that he is committed, that he is going to grind his way to either playing time in basketball or maybe even football. So I think the commitment level is there. I don't think that's an issue. The work ethic is 100% there. So it's just going to come down to a balance. And if he believes that he can do it, and again, I don't see why not. I think he can balance a little bit of both. Football season is going to end, sometime in December. So you're talking right at the beginning of basketball season. We've seen guys do it in the past that play both football and basketball, but not really to this level. We really haven't seen a basketball player that has been a starter at West Virginia go and play on the football side. So it's going to be interesting when that crossover season comes, how that's kind of managed. But luckily, that's kind of, towards the beginning of the season, playing some non-conference opponents. But I think that's going to be the really the biggest challenge for Jimmy is when he does get back into basketball full time. How long is it going to take for him to kind of get his mind frame out of football and focus solely into basketball? So that's really the only two challenges I would see coming for Jimmy. But like I said, if I'm Jimmy Bell, why not try to do both? Try to stick it out here in the States and somehow make it onto an NFL practice squad. And all of a sudden, you don't have to go overseas. So that's going to do it for today's show on Between the Ears. I'm Schuyler Callihan. Be sure to hit that subscribe button on YouTube at Mountaineers Now. You can follow us on Twitter at Mountaineers Now as well. Tomorrow, I'm going to dive all into our Mountaineers Now, Between the Ears mailbag. We did it last week, video version for the first time. It did fairly well. We've got a ton of questions already pouring in. If you have a question, hit me up on Twitter at Callihan_. football, basketball, baseball, recruiting, transfer portal, doesn't matter what you want to know. Send me your questions and you'll be featured in tomorrow's mailbag. Thank you guys for watching. We'll see you tomorrow morning.